Brennan here, Mr. B's Fishing Things. What's going on today? Well, today, none of the tanks are running. Let's take a look. So, all of these ones are low in water because I was actually in the middle of a water change. I got most of them filled back up, so luckily the timing's not bad. But, we are now, this was happening last night, it's the following morning. We're, I don't know, 12 or 14 hours into power failure. So what am I doing about it? Well, it's really simple. The first thing I did was nothing. Because I thought, hey, might come back on in an hour or something like that, right? No big deal. When I started to get concerned after 3 or 4 hours, I went around and I turned off the power bars on everything. And I shut the valves on my canister filters.
Horrible.
Let's take a look.
But this is power bars. Canisters. I've closed the valves on them. Shut off the power bars. Now, anywhere that I have air, I have check valves so that nothing siphons backwards. So this is a simple check valve. And all that it really does is it lets air go through in one direction and not the other. That keeps anything that is runoff of air from siphoning the water back out through a line, possibly damaging a pump or getting your floor wet or just plain old making a mess, making you kind of miserable in an event that's already not much fun. So otherwise, temperature is something that I'm monitoring. Now I have wood heat here in my home, and the temperature in the house here today is in the mid 20s, low 70s, you know, with the little fire on. I mean a little fire. So the tanks have really only dropped 4 or 5 degrees. 4 or 5 degrees are not a concern. And the thing to think about, or remember, I guess, is that that's a very gradual drop over, you know, a 12-hour period. It's not like they're getting shocked by any means. Comfortable for me, chances are that the fish tanks are not really dropping that far in temperature. It's a gradual drop anyway. But if you don't have heat in your home, why are you there? Take care of yourself. There are things you can do to hopefully help your fish make it through something like this. But number one, you have to take care of yourself. Hang on back filters. A little bit different story. Once again, I've killed the power to them. And the reason that we killed the power to these is because when it starts back up, all of the bad stuff, right? The detritus and the fish poop and everything that the filter has gathered up, hopefully, is sitting in there, in that water. So it's become very concentrated. While there's a lot of beneficial bacteria in there that helps with our tanks, the majority of it is really in your tank. Everybody likes to say that, oh, well, you know, all that beneficial bacteria lives in your filter. I tend to disagree. Yes, there's absolutely beneficial bacteria lives in your filter, but that's not the only place it is. Remember, beneficial bacteria lives anywhere the water touches. Now, it lives better in a high flow area, like in your filter there, right? But doesn't mean it's not everywhere else in there. And when there isn't flow, it can become toxic. So once again, I unplugged the filters. And then what I'm doing now is I'm taking a bucket and I'm going around and I take a little bit of the water out of the tank. Now that's causing surface agitation. So by going around with my bucket and a hose and I take a little bit out of there, and what I'm doing is I'm rinsing the media in each individual tank. Don't need a lot of water to do that, but I'm rinsing the media in each individual tank or whatever, and I'm putting it back in its own tank water. So in other words, a little filter cleaning. And putting it back in there. Now, hopefully my bacteria is going to survive. If it doesn't, then I'll have to look at changing that out again later. But for now, I'm doing maintenance basically on that. So, I rinse the media right in a bucket of water that I've taken from the tank. And then what am I going to do with it? I'm going to dump it in the tank, not back in the filter. You see, all of that media that was sitting in that filter, with all of that wonderful beneficial bacteria in it, if it's been sitting in there any amount of time, it's become toxic. That's no longer beneficial bacteria. So you got to catch this early enough, and then you kind of got to decide for yourself. Is it too late, or can I still save something? If you think you can save it, and it hasn't been too late, and you've been diligent, and it doesn't really matter how clean your filters were, by the way, then what you can do is rinse it like this in some tank water from that tank, and then put it in the tank. Set it right in the tank. It's in the water then, in the water column. keeping the beneficial bacteria alive and possibly helping the tank. But don't put it in if too much time has elapsed. What's too much time? It's kind of hard to say it sometimes. The important thing is, don't let that filter start back up again when the power comes back on and pump all of that water that's been sitting in there for hours and hours and has simply become toxic. You would literally pump that right into your aquarium. Don't let that happen. Kill the power, and just time to do a little bit of filter maintenance. That's all there is to it. Intake sponges, air sponges, not a problem. Leave them in there. Don't disturb them. They'll be just fine.
So whether if it's a canister, a hang-on back, an external filter, doesn't really matter what you have. The biggest thing is to turn it off. Don't let the power come back on and for that to go back into the tank. It's going to instantly pump a bunch of bad stuff back into your tank. So as much as your filter is a wonderful thing to have, in this case it can be a bad thing. Now if you get a sponge filter in there, you're all set. Don't worry about it. Leave it there. Don't disturb it. Don't stir up the tank. Leave it alone. And then I have another trick up my sleeve.
Portable battery air pump. It's a top fin one. This is Sabo? Either way. Battery operated air pumps. They've got a couple of air lines coming off of them. Just kind of nice. And this one has an on-off switch. They take batteries, hook an air line up to it, and what I do is I put a T on it and then run it into multiple tanks. And I don't forget the batteries. What's good's a battery operated air pump if you don't have batteries?
I don't do that unless if I absolutely feel I need to, honestly. After a certain period of time, a little bit of surface agitation is going to become important to move the water in the tank, cause some surface agitation and air exchange. Another thing I don't do is I don't feed. So fish food, irregardless of how bad you feel for the fish, is just going to go in there and cause more of a problem right now. Don't feed. What about testing the water? Well, that's certainly something you can do and it won't do any harm whatsoever. But here's my question. Can you do anything about it? If you don't have water waiting to change the water out with, then that's something that really isn't going to help you is testing the water. But it won't hurt you to know what's going on and give you an idea of how worried you should be. So what's with that noisy bugger? Well, that brings me to water. For me, I have a well, and by using a small generator like that, I can get my well going and I can get all the water that I need if I need it. But the trick is, do I need it? And for you, if you don't have a generator or you don't have a source of water of your own, if you're on a municipal supply, chances are, even in a power failure, you've got water. If you've got water, that's wonderful. Remember, however, though, that if you have a hot water tank, that water might have been sitting in there a long time, and it might be something you want to check. If you have pipes, that you can't let the water flow for a little while and make sure that things are good. So make sure that you keep an eye on that as well. So what do you do in a power failure? Number one, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. Take care of yourself, first of all. Seriously, take care of yourself. These wet pets are very important to all of us, but you need to take care of yourself. And then, as far as them, they might not be as affected as you think. They're really not. You're going to have to be without power for a very long time before it's going to be an issue. But there are some precautions that you can take ahead of time. Make sure that you have water stored ahead of time. Make sure that your fish are kept up to begin with. Proper tank maintenance on a regular basis is one of the best defenses that you can possibly have. Because then things aren't going to build up and it's not going to be at a toxic level already, being compounded by the power failure. Some signs to look for. Are your fish hanging around at the top? Are they gasping for air? And don't mistake if they're just swimming there. These are Daniels. They swim at the top. They're fine. Other fish? Well, they're more looking at me for, hey, you gonna feed me? Plants are a good thing. They're gonna help. But remember that they're cycling as well. So I hope this was helpful for you if you've had a power failure, or if you're just thinking about what you should be doing if you do have a power failure. Thanks for watching.